Okay, thank you for the introduction. I wanted to talk more slowly, I guess, about trends in RPKI deployment. So indeed, I work for NLnet Labs. We're a not-for-profit organization in the Netherlands, and we work on open source, open standards, open internet. I'm best known for the work we do on DNS, but recently, well, for the past 2 years, we've also ventured into routing and RPKI. Before I joined NLnet Labs, I worked for RPKI, so I was already quite familiar with this subject. But let's move on to the subject matter. We at NLnet Labs, we do software development, we do standards development, but we also do some research. And one thing we've looked at is an analysis of RPKI data over time. And I wanted to share that a bit with you because it's one side of the deployment story, of course, is what people put into the RPKI. We've looked at data from various sources and looked at the cross-section of that, if you will. Namely, we've looked at routing information from various sources, RPKI, route views, Akamai, historic information on RPKI repositories, which has been made available by the RPKI actually. And the paper was produced where we did a comparison of all this. I'll just give you the very short version of that and a follow-up here. Because what did we really look at? ROA uptake and accuracy maps. That's a thing that I like to look at least. So which ROAs or which validated ROA prefixes have been put into the system by people? Where do they occur? And how well do they actually match what's going on in BGP? These are the sources we've used: route views, again, historic information, and the mapping to country is done based on the statistics that are published by the RARs. Then if we look further back, I don't have a graph for that, but around January 2011, the RARs started supporting this as a service. I think APNIC was a bit earlier actually, but most RARs started then, including LACNIC. And of course, then there was no coverage at all. Now, if we look, we see pretty good coverage, especially in Latin America, actually, also in the RIPE region, and increasingly also in other regions. If I would have shown this picture 2 years ago, then the APNIC region and ARAN regions would be more white, let's say. If we look at the accuracy of the data, this is a measure of, okay, you authorize announcements, but the announcements that we see in BGP do not actually agree with this, or vice versa. And there the picture is mostly pretty good. Back in April 2018, but not always. And this is due to a number of reasons, I believe. First of all, well, back in the beginning, the data quality was really, really poor, actually. But LACNIC and RPKI and others have invested a lot of effort into, put a lot of effort into improving their training and providing users with a good user interface that helps them create the ROAS that they need to create. So this has helped to improve the data a lot. But most networks were not actively filtering based on ROAS yet. So even if you would not update your ROAS, you would not necessarily see negative results of that. And as a result, not everybody was maintaining their ROAS as well as they maybe should. Then in 2018, a change happened. This is really the year that people started to, that more people started to reject invalid announcements, RPKI invalid announcements. And one of the things that triggered that was probably the much discussed hijack that resulted in the Route 53 hijack, as it's known, where cryptocurrency was stolen. And of course, this problem had been known longer, but I think this was really the moment that other major players started saying enough is enough. Before then, well, there were people active, there were early adopters. Colombia in particular was very active that I know of, and I think there were also others in the Lightning region who were actively dropping. There were some small networks in Europe, but the major ones, not so much, who were dropping RPKI invalids, but then this started to change. This is a overview of numbers that we did not measure, but Ben Cox did a active measurements on, okay, which networks are actually dropping RPKI invalids, and he presented that at NLnet 2 years ago, and again last year. We can see a big increase in the number of ASNs that are dropping invalids. There's also many public announcements, and to quote a tweet from last week, this is Job Snijders putting the names on a graph that was made by the authors mentioned above at the top of the page here, where they did another type of analysis of, okay, how many networks are now actively dropping invalids. Now the numbers there might still be low, but then please keep in mind that for RPKI to be effective, it's really important that the networks in the middle of the path deploy filtering. The stop networks, which is the vast majority of ASNs out there, well, they don't necessarily need to filter unless they want to protect themselves, let's say. But to protect everybody else, it's good if people in the path filter. And you can see that well, there's a very big increase here since starting around 2018, and it's going up and up still. Now, if we look at the accuracy of how well ROAS match BGP today, then the picture is actually quite different than the one I've shown you before. The accuracy is now much, much higher. And I believe that that is probably the result of people dropping invalids. Because now, if your ROAS are not, do not reflect what you want to do in BGP, well, then you'll have to fix them, right? Or you'll have to remove them. But most people fix them, I believe. Because if we look at the coverage, which I'll get to in a moment as well, we don't see that dropping at all. To highlight this picture here, I'll let it play. This is showing the change from 2018 until today, where countries in white have a less than 90% accuracy, and dark blue is 100%. And if you look at this over time, then you see that all over the globe, essentially, the data quality is really improving a lot. Coverage, well, like I said earlier, if you are causing your announcements to be invalid because you don't maintain your ROAS, you can do two things. You can fix your ROAS or you can remove them. If you remove them, then your announcements will enter the not found state, but they won't be rejected. So you could hypothesize that people will just stop doing RPKI, but that's not what we see. If I play this, Well, you don't see things going down significantly. Actually, the opposite is happening. Deployment, the coverage is still increasing. I'll let this play for a while so you can see the end of it. By the way, if you downloaded the slides as PDF, then of course these videos don't work, but the links below should work for you. Okay. Next slide. Now, my background is mostly on theory and on the data analysis, let's say, and on making an RPKI CA. So I don't actually manage networks myself. Still, I think I should include something about that here as well, from what I've heard other people say. So generally speaking, so the general advice that I hear, if you're looking into doing RPKI filtering, is that, well, you should really monitor before you start to drop anything. You should also really train your help desk, because you need to know what's going on. If people call you, like, what happened to my route, you need to understand where to look and what to fix. And especially if you're a bigger organization, then everybody in your organization needs to be aware of this. On the other side, yeah, if you are creating ROAS, you should also be aware of ASNs dropping invalids, because you need to keep your ROAS up to date. Then, well, that's a bit of a side note in the rest of my story, but I think it's important to mention. What else happened recently? Well, in 2019, NICBR deployed RPKI using the software that we built, actually. And they are one of the main organizations funding our work regarding this, actually. So thank you, NICBR, for that, and also thank you for for starting the service. It's interesting because the model of NICBR is a bit different from what LACNIC has, and most of the RARs, well, all the RARs, essentially provide hosted platforms where members use the RAR portal to manage their ROAS.
5 minutes left.
On a NICBR, people can run their own RPKI CA. So here, acme.br, that's a corporation, Acme in Brazil, operates on a NICBR, and they can publish at NICBR. You could also run delegated CAs under other RARs, actually. It is technically possible, I believe, to run it under LACNIC even. NICBR is doing it. Others do not yet, but on the other RARs, you already have a small number of early adopters running delegated CA software themselves. Which tools can you use for this? Well, there's RPKI by Dragon Research Labs. This is one of the oldest tools around, and it's in use by several NARs and some delegated CAs. And then there's Krill that we make, which now supports Spanish as well, by the way. So hopefully that helps some people if they're interested in looking into this. Why would you run a delegated CA now? Well, first off, for many of you, well, majority, I guess, of people here will be LACNIC members. The LACNIC hosted interface is perfectly fine for a lot of people. But you may still want to run something yourself. Because if you do, you can use one solution on the multiple RARs, if that's a problem you have, yet had a simple single API that you use for all your management. You can delegate space to others, which you cannot usually do in a portal. So you can maybe have a customer or a team manage some of the space. And you have more local control over who can access and modify your RPKI data. On the other side, there are hardware requirements. They're low, but you also need to maintain services and servers. And you need to host the RPKI repository. You need to publish your OS somewhere. NICBR provides a service, but other RARs don't generally provide a service just yet.
2 minutes left.
So with regards to Krill, well, you can look at this again later. We have lots of documentation. We just did a release today. For the easy install, we now have Krill Manager, which sets everything up for you, including the use of a Nginx proxy and rsync servers and so on, which is available on DigitalOcean marketplace, and Amazon Web Services is coming, actually, is just today semi-official that it's accepted and done. Some statistics, NICBR is going strong. Some early adopters on the other RARs, but more importantly, let's generalize these things again and not just talk about Krill. What are the issues that we find? Well, we found a number of issues where people used localhost as their repository. And some people stopped using their delegated CA and they don't tell the parent. So these are really the biggest things that we found in the since this was started with NICBR. But I believe we're good on the way to fixing all of this. So there are provisions in place that prevent this now, and NICBR is actively monitoring this. So conclusions, delegated CAs are seeing uptake. NICBR members, of course, do not have a portal that they can use at this moment. So they, in a way, they don't have a choice, but it's not stopping them. We do see some early adopters in other regions. We see some initial issues, but generally speaking, it's not much different from what we have seen with people using the RAR services. One big other thing, though, is that managed repositories are much needed because we do see that there are now many more RPKI repositories in the world, and this is putting some burden on the relying party software to go out there and get everything. Well, it will be interesting to see where this is going in the near future, and the long future for that matter. But yeah, that brings me to the end of my story, essentially. So contact details here, my email address is here if you have any questions for me or our team. And yes, with that, I'd like to hand back to the chair of this event.
Thank you very much, Tim. Mariela, are there any questions for Tim? ¿Hay alguna pregunta?
Sí, Maca, tenemos preguntas y un comentario. Carolina, por favor, ¿podrías hacer llegar a Tim los comentarios de Ricardo?
Sí, Mariela, cómo no. Hi, Tim. So we have some comments and questions. I will read them in Spanish and English, just so that you know, okay? Just one second, let me pull them up. So comments from Ricardo Patara. We at NICBR would like to express our appreciation to NLnet Labs for the good collaboration and good work we have had even before the deployment. And then there's a second comment, and under NICBR model, ISPs can use our repository or have their own also. I will read now in Spanish. Nosotros en NICBR queremos expresar nuestra apreciación a NLnet Labs por la colaboración y el buen trabajo que hacen, aún antes de que hiciéramos el despliegue. En el modelo de NICBR, los ISPs pueden usar nuestros repositorios o usar uno propio. Tim, I don't know if you want to react to that.
No, that is indeed true. You don't have to use the repository provided by NICBR if you are a NICBR member. You can use your own. But most people would choose to not have the burden to do this themselves.
Ok, muchísimas gracias. Thank you, Tim. Gracias, Carolina. Tenemos una pregunta de Erika Vega. Carolina, ¿se la podés compartir a Tim?
Sí, como no. Team, so I'll read the question in English and Spanish again. Hi, team. I am Erika Vega from Colombia. We met at the IATF in Singapore. My question is, what problems can organizations face if they currently have outdated ROAS and their BGP announcements are invalidated? If you don't mind, I'll read it quickly in Spanish, and then you can go ahead and answer. Hola, team. Soy Erika Vega de Colombia. Nos conocimos en el IATF de Singapur. Mi pregunta es, ¿qué problemas pueden tener las organizaciones que actualmente tienen los ROAS desactualizados e invalidan sus anuncios BGP? Please go ahead, Tim.
Well, now that a significant number of organizations drop RPKI invalid announcements, you would see that your announcements don't reach, get very far anymore. So yes, you need to be aware of that this can be an effect of not maintaining ROAS. And then you have two choices. You can either maintain your ROAS properly and do it as part of your operations, that whenever you make changes to BGP, you also change your ROAS. Or you can choose not to do it at all, but then you're not protected either. And when I look at the data, I mean, it could be, there are no doubts that there are some organizations who choose to switch it off because maintaining it is too much work for them. But coverage is still going up. So I think by and large, people are choosing to fix their ROAS rather than delete them.
Thank you, Tim. And the last is other comment. Carolina, ¿podrás hacerle llegar este otro comentario de Ricardo también a Tim?
Sí, como no, Mariela. So Tim, here's a last comment from Ricardo Patara. Our approach is to inform, and after a number of notifications, we can remove the RPKI delegation, which would not impact as the objects are already not functioning and routes are being marked as unknown already.